It's Election Day in Arkansas, and THV 11 is your election central.
A lengthy campaign for the next Arkansas governor could come to an end tonight. I'm Sarah Backowitz, and I'll be with the Sarah Huckabee Sanders campaign all night, bringing you the latest.
I'm Frederick Price at Chris Jones' watch party. Next, we'll have the latest and why he's optimistic he can still pull off a win on this final day of the gubernatorial race.
I'm in Rossville Mayor Frank Scott Jr.'s bid for re-election. We have live coverage from here at the Hall, including why he says he's the right choice to lead Little Rock into the future.
Businessman turned politician. I'm Ashley Godwin at the Steve Landers watch party, where he hopes to become the next mayor of Little Rock.
Plus, the latest on the issues and voter turnout.
Two years in the making, and now it is finally here. Election Day in Arkansas. Thanks for watching. I'm Rolly Hoyt.
And I'm Faith Woodard. For the last 2 weeks and all day today, voters have been casting their ballot in dozens of races in this midterm election.
From the issues to the candidates, THV 11 is your election central. We've got extensive team coverage this evening and throughout the night.
But polls are open for another 2.5 hours, so you still have time to get out and cast your vote.
Plenty of time. THV 11's Brooke Buckner joins us live from Little Rock's Emmanuel Baptist Church with the information you need if you're heading to the polls tonight. Brooke, what can you tell us?
Hey, Rolly and Faith, just take a look for yourself behind me. This line has significantly gotten longer in the last 20 to 30 minutes, I'd say. I got here at 3:30 and you could not see a line outside. The line was only inside the building, but that has obviously changed. It's now going all the way out into the parking lot. So if you haven't gone out to vote yet, you still have time to do that, but there are a few things you need to know before you head to your polling site. First things first, you need to go to voterview.org so you can check to make sure you're going to the right location, because this is different than it's been the last 2 weeks. You can't just show up to any location to vote. You have to go to your designated spot. That has slowed things down a little bit today, but other than that, no major issues in the county. And then you also need to show up with your ID. Don't forget that. You need that in order to vote. And a Pulaski County election commissioner tells me if you've been waiting in line and it hits 7:30, you can still vote, but if you show up after 7:30, you can't. And you'll hear from her later on in the show, and she'll talk more about that. But for now, I'm going to send things over to Tom for a check-in on your election day forecast. Tom, it feels pretty nice out here in West Little Rock.
Oh, no complaints about the weather whatsoever. Brooke Buckner, thank you so much. And if you are going to be voting the next couple of 3 hours, temperatures will fall back from the middle 70s into the upper 60s. Again, a very comfortable evening, not expecting any rain or weather concerns whatsoever if you're planning on getting out and voting this evening. This is through 8 o'clock as those numbers fall back into the 60s. A real quick glance at what we're expecting tomorrow, with high temperatures tomorrow getting close to 80, close to records in some locations. But from there, we are going to see a big cool down. We're going to talk about that coming up in just a few moments. Faith and Rolly will send things back over to you.
Well, as voters continue to show up at the polls, gubernatorial candidates are also heading out to cast their ballot.
Yeah, we've got team election coverage tonight. THV 11's Frederick Price following Democrat Chris Jones. We'll hear from him in just a moment.
But first, THV 11 Sarah Backowitz has been following Sarah Huckabee Sanders' campaign for months. Sarah, there's a long night ahead of us.
That's right, Faith, a long night ahead of us, and it's been a long campaign trail. You're right, I've been covering this campaign since she first launched it back in last June. She was the first candidate to announce it for the gubernatorial race, and things are just getting started here. Guests are expected to come in the next hour or so, as well as the candidate herself. She won't be speaking, however, until polls close. She did spend the morning going to vote herself with her family and speak a little bit more about her platform.
Things like education and making sure every child in the state has access to a quality education, making sure our neighborhoods and our communities are safe, phasing out the state income tax and rewarding hard work.
Education is one of those big topics in this gubernatorial race. It's something that Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her main opponent, Chris Jones, have been focusing on all campaign. Frederick Price is with Chris Jones right now with the latest on his platform. Frederick, what's it looking like over there?
Hey, Sarah. Yeah, here at the Chris Jones campaign team, they're putting the final touches on here at the William Steele Grant Ballroom at the Robinson Center. He's actually not expected to be here until 7:30 p.m. But on this final day of the gubernatorial race, he's still expecting to pull off a win against his rival, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. But there is a 10-point lead. She has a 10-point lead against Chris Jones in this campaign. He has been in communities all across Arkansas today trying to fill that gap. He's made stops in Prescott, his hometown of Pine Bluff. He's been door knocking and rallying, trying to get his supporters to the polls. Now, Jones is focusing a lot on preschool, broadband, and jobs, PB&J as he calls it. He plans to target those small rural areas like Mena and Wabaseka that don't have the education, internet, or even job resources. He wants to turn that around. Now, throughout his campaign, he's talked a lot about how education is something his parents made sure he got. You'll remember Jones is a nuclear engineer and earned his doctorate degree. He's hoping to provide those same tools and technology to Arkansans to build business and create jobs. He's also focusing on workforce readiness and goes back to his time working for Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub. Now, Jones says he developed a program that trained 18 to 24-year-olds roofing, welding, and HVAC that allowed them to get trades and develop those entrepreneurships. Now, ultimately, if he's elected, he wants to provide a foundation of solid infrastructure across the state, and this is obviously going to be a historic race. If he's elected, he would be the first Black American male governor here in Arkansas. So certainly a very historic race and a lot of things to watch, and we'll be here all throughout the night covering this. I'll send things back to you in the studio.
Frederick, thank you very much. Of course, the people of Little Rock have another important race they're considering. Who will lead the city for the next 4 years? Mayor Frank Scott Jr. is running to keep that seat, while three opponents, Steve Landers, Greg Henderson, and Glenn Schwartz, are also hoping for a victory this evening. THV 11's Ashley Godwin has been following candidate Steve Landers for us tonight, but let's begin with the embattled incumbent. THV 11's Ian Russell tracking Mayor Scott's bid for re-election. He joins us live with more. Ian?
Hey, really, yeah, well, we got to start with some new information about some of the issues that Mayor Scott is going to have to face this time around. We now know that he will have to testify and appear in court for that Freedom of Information Act lawsuit brought against him. Now, that's set for later in November, so let's focus on today, Election Day. Mayor Scott spent the majority of the morning out campaigning, speaking to voters as they headed to the polls to cast their ballot. Now, of course, voters do have a lot to consider this time around. Remember, Mayor Scott led Little Rock through the COVID-19 pandemic and the protest after George Floyd's death, but Scott's opponents are quick to point to what they say are shortcomings with the mayor. Scott's Rebuild the Rock proposal, which was voted down last year, the failed entertainment festival Lit Fest, and of course, Little Rock's homicide trends. Now, those numbers have gone up every year since Scott took office, and just yesterday, we saw our 73rd homicide of the year, and we are continuing to break records on that front. Now, we caught up with Scott earlier today, and I asked him about those numbers, and he says it's priority number one if he's reelected.
And so we are doing the work. We have a plan that's in action. Please go to littlerock.gov/reduce crime. You'll see the plan that's in action. And we have to continue, as our chief of police just recently said, is that we have to sustain this holistic, comprehensive approach to reducing crime.
Now, we'll be live at the hall where Scott's campaign watch party is for the rest of the night. But of course, we got to talk about Scott's major opponent in that race. And our Ashley Godwin has been following the Steve Landers campaign this entire time. And Ashley, it sounds like you were able to catch up with Steve earlier this morning. Is that right?
That's right, Ian. We caught up with Steve Landers as he was voting, and he told us violent crime is his #1 priority if he is elected. And as we mentioned, Little Rock is having its deadliest year on record with 73 homicides. 2 of those happened just yesterday. And Landers says this is the most important issue for him, and he will address it by immediately getting crime under control and hiring a new police chief within 45 days of getting into office.
This is why I'm in the race. I'm in it to win this for not only my grandkids, but for y'all's kids and your families and everything else. You know, we just got to get the kids to stop killing kids. Kids are killing kids.
And Landers has also released a 3-point plan to reduce crime in the city. This includes building relationships with surrounding law enforcement agencies, putting more funding into the LRPD, and recruiting more officers. And Landers also has plans to improve city government, economic development, and parks and recreation. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Ashley. Something every Arkansas voter saw on their ballot: 4 issues that, if passed, would change the state constitution. One of the biggest and highly debated issue, the push to legalize recreational marijuana here in Arkansas. We have THV 11's Jalissa Garza watching that race for us tonight. She's live at the Capitol Hotel, where supporters for the issue are starting to gather. How are people feeling, Jalissa?
Well, Faith, Responsible Growth Arkansas has been here since 3 o'clock, setting up for their watch party that kicks off later on this evening. And they're anticipating a high turnout for this issue, saying that they're feeling a little bit optimistic, but still just saying that they're happy this issue has made the ballot. The issue is the only citizen-driven one on the ballot, and it's proven to be a hot topic among voters. Responsible Growth says it's been quite the journey to get here. And yesterday, they made their last case to voters at the Capitol, and just, again, anticipating what happens today, saying in the end, it's up to Arkansans to decide.
It legalizes a product that, people are getting misdemeanors and, getting jail time and fines and court dates and court costs. And so it kind of brings Arkansas into, what I'd say the 21st century.
I did speak with Jerry Cox, who is with the Family Council Action Committee. He is against issue 4. I spoke with him earlier this morning, and he says that, again, it's totally up to Arkansans. Him and about 38 other groups across the state all came together yesterday opposing the issue. He says for different reasons, but they all believe each reason is a good reason. Again, it is up to Arkansans, and if you have not read issue 4 yet or are in line waiting to make that decision, we have a full breakdown on our website at thv11.com. We're going to be following this race all night and providing you updates online and on air. For now, I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to you in the studio.
Jalissa, thank you. Issue 4 isn't the only ballot initiative we're following this evening. Voters also weighing in on 3 other amendment proposals. Issue 1 would give state lawmakers the ability to call a special legislative session without the governor.
Issue 2 would require future ballot initiatives to receive a 60% majority in order to pass. And then Issue 3 hopes to keep the government from being a burden on someone's religious freedoms. Again, we're following all of these issues closely. We will have those results as we go through the night.
And if you haven't voted yet, there's still more than 2 hours left until polls close. Remember to check out the THV11 voter guide before casting your ballot.
It's easy. Just text the word VOTE to 501-376-1111 and we will send a link to our voter guides. It'll be straight to your phone. And be sure to stick with THV11 tonight when the polls close at 7:30. We'll have streaming nonstop coverage on the new THV11 Plus app. It's available on your Roku or Amazon Fire devices.
Our team of anchors, reporters, and experts will continue breaking down the results, including the big races for U.S. Congress and Senate, Lieutenant Governor, and Attorney General. We'll be live on air during CBS election coverage tonight and at 6 and 10. Still ahead, a check of the midterm election across the nation as voters are considering more than 130 measures on the ballot, plus a look at the 35 other states with governor races.
Turned out to be a beautiful day in Arkansas. Clouds this morning turned into sunshine for the afternoon. Perfect day for getting out and voting. How long will this beautiful weather last before it gets a little colder? Got those answers coming up after the break.